bringing Gator Nation a different Gator great every episode.
This is Jabari Gaffney. You're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey, I'm Earl Everett. You're not a Gator, you're Gator bait.
This is Bo Carroll.
Hey, I'm Rita Anthony.
This is Kewan Ratliff, and you are listening to All for the Gators podcast.
This is Cedric Faison, a.k.a. C4.
This is Brandon James.
This is Jack Jackson. Go Gators.
Hi, this is your boy Jeremy Mincy, a.k.a. Mr. Mintz, and we were the All for the Gators podcast.
This is Ben Trooper. You listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey, guys, this is Jarvis Moss. Go Gators.
You rocking with Lito Shepherd, and we're All for the Gators podcast, man. Top notch.
This is Chris Doring, and you're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
And now, your Gator alumni hosts, John, Andy, and Sid.
Are you flossing?
I was.
He has good dental hygiene.
We're starting the show.
I think the smile happens naturally.
We're looking for a dental sponsor.
Yeah. Oral B. I'm always looking for the oral B.
Well, guys, it's good to be back. We took a short hiatus, right, because we had some bad storms hit Florida, and Andy's in upper management for a power company, deals a lot in restoration. He was busy. And,
literally keeping the lights on for us.
Yeah. I actually moved. This is the first show in my new digs.
Got your new digs. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Gonna have our guests come over in person now since you got the new setup over there?
Yeah, I gotta get those old-looking leather sofas, you know?
Yep.
And get a nice little setup going.
I like it.
Something I wanted to mention, during our little hiatus, you know, our listeners kept listening. We didn't lose any traction on our former shows just because we weren't posting new shows. I get updates. You know, I wasn't too active on social media because we were moving and everything. But I do get emailed each week how many listens we have to each show. And it's consistent. It's steady every week, even without new social media posts, promotions, new shows coming out. So that just shows what kind of legs, right, that our episodes have. These Gator greats that we're featuring each episode. You have Hall of Famers, national champions, all conference players, all sorts of Gator greats, record holders that we've had on the show. People still want to listen to it and hear their stories. So very proud.
Yeah.
Lots of good
episodes. Maybe
episodes.
some of our new listeners gave them a chance to catch up.
That's right.
You know, go back and catch up.
Or go back and listen to your favorite one again. Yeah.
Hopefully they're jonesing for more because we got some good stuff coming up.
Yeah, and not sure how you're listening now, but you can go to allforthegatospodcast.com. 4 is the number 4. You can see all our prior guests, listen to all our prior shows there. Of course, we're on every podcast platform as well.
You can even ask Alexa.
You could even ask Alexa to play us. Sid, give me a segue.
I'm kicking around a few ideas. What are we kicking?
Sid's rusty. Sid is rusty.
Yes, he is.
Today's Gator Great came out of our nation's oldest city, St. Augustine. We're at St. Augustine High. He was all-state and captured a Florida 3A state football title. Well, just 75 miles due west, Coach Urban Meyer, Tebow, and Percy, well, they had something rolling in Gainesville. And our esteemed guest followed in Tebow's footsteps, headed over to play ball in the swamp, and there he would go on to become one of UF's most prolific legs. Just open a record book. This man's made more field goals than anyone else in over 100 years of Gator football history in a single season and for a career at UF. He was even up for the Lou Groza Award all 3 seasons he kicked field goals for the Gators. He'd go on to get drafted by the Dolphins and play 6 years in the NFL with the Finns, Eagles, and Chargers. Gator Nation, I present to you 2-time first-team All-SEC, 2-time All-American, 2012 SEC Special Teams Player of the Year, with number 19 on his chest in the orange and blue, national champion and Gators all-time field goal leader, Mr. Caleb Sturgis.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I need you to introduce me all the time. Thank you, John.
Yeah, man. Anytime, Caleb. So cool to have you on the show with us. You know, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We've had some of your kicking friends from the team. I'm sure we had Judd, we had Jeff Chandler, and threw in a puncher with Shane Edge, and all have been awesome. So we're looking forward to this.
Yeah, there's some good dudes. They beat me up in golf, but that's all right.
Here's a Caleb Sturgis fun fact, okay? He's won the state championship in high school, national championship in college, and he's got a Super Bowl ring in the NFL. Can you guys name any other players that have accomplished that?
That's quite the hat trick.
Most other ones probably came out of Alabama, but that's okay.
You're probably right.
Well, in my stout research, I did find a thread of a forum where they were discussing it, and Derek Brooks was mentioned and Jeremy Shockey.
Okay. Well,
as well.
I know my buddy Justin Trodow, who was a defensive end at the time. I know he got all three. He won one at Don Bosco in New Jersey.
Okay.
And got one with the Giants, and then obviously we played together in '08. So there's one more for you.
All right, awesome.
With a Gator link. I like that. Very good. All right, Caleb, let's take it back to America's oldest city, St. Augustine, as John mentioned, where you're from. Very cool city, by the way. I was there earlier this year. But you grew up there, one of 6 kids, bunch of athletes, mostly soccer. So what got you into kicking footballs?
Yeah, so I mean, you described it well. We were very much a soccer family. All 6 kids grew up playing soccer. Oldest sister went to William and Mary. My next brother played soccer at Flagler there in St. Augustine. And really probably one of the bigger reasons I ended up kicking was my next brother. He was, really good. Ended up playing 11 years in the MLS. Played college at Clemson, but left the home when he was 15 to go down to IMG and play on the under-17 national team. And he was recruited, really all over the country. But in soccer, you only offer 9 scholarships. And so he really wanted to go to UNC, but being one of 6 kids, my parents didn't really save a ton for college. So, paying 25% with them only offering about a 75% scholarship really was out of the question for him. So he ended up going to Clemson, and, I kind of saw that play out and thought that was kind of crazy. I'm not near as good as him at soccer. And at the same time, ended up going to St. Augustine High School, where we were really a powerhouse football team. Kind of all that led to me deciding to switch from kicking a soccer ball to kicking a football.
Which one do you like better?
Ooh.
It's a tough question. I mean, I've made a lot more money kicking a football, but soccer is it's a ton of fun. I'm a big fan. Obviously, the World Cup is incredible. Definitely want to try to catch a few games in 26 when it comes here to the States.
Yeah, I'm down here in South Florida, and not far from where the Miami Football Club plays, and Messi has certainly changed things down here.
Yeah, Messi, Suarez, that's a pretty good duo.
Well, getting back to your kicking prowess, as we've established, spent some time in St. Augustine, but we weren't exactly lighting them up there. You went 13 for 25 in field goals. Was it like 12 50-yarders? Like, how exactly did you get on the Gators' radar, making barely 50% of your field goals?
Yeah, well, so there's kind of a loophole in kicking in high school, and it's been a long time since I've paid a ton of attention, but at the time, if you hit a touchback, if you kick the ball into the end zone on a field goal in high school, it comes out as a touchback. And I wasn't that great of a punter in high school, so no matter where we were, if we passed midfield, we were going to try a field goal. So I definitely tried a lot of plus 50 and a lot of plus 60s.
Okay.
So that's my excuse. It's a lot of,
Hey, we're buying it.
Yeah, you sold me.
You're going to have trouble finding the film of all those 20-yarders I missed, so that's my excuse.
So while you're out there kicking 75-yarders, the Gators are rolling over in Gainesville, right? And as you're coming out of high school, was it always going to be UF for you? Were there other schools you were considering? How was the recruiting?
Yeah, so my mom went to Florida. So I grew up a big Gator fan, started really watching football in the mid-90s, the Werfel winning the national championship up to, Grossman in the early 2000s. So, I grew up a huge Gator football fan. So I knew if they offered me, it would take something crazy for me not to go there. And then you add the fact that Urban Meyer's there at the time. They win the national championship in 2006. There was really nothing that was going to keep me from Florida. I did have a fair amount of other offers, including, Ron Zook came to my high school multiple times. He was at Illinois at the time.
Sure.
Coach Spurrier's son, Steve, was at South Carolina, came down to recruit me. I had other schools that were interested. It was just, if Florida offered, that was where I was stopping. It's an hour and a half from my hometown. Grew up a big Gator fan, and U.S. at the top of the world. They have the most famous football player on earth at the time. There were just so many things that said you have to go here.
Sure.
You actually get there early, but I'm sure you realized quickly that Urban was kind of hammering the team and drilling them pretty good every day for the 2007 season. And did he go easy on the kickers, or were you guys in the mix with that?
No, not at all. And it's such a different era. It's funny, it feels like yesterday, but it's been so long. And now you've got to recruit guys each and every day. But at the time, once they had you in there, you were stuck. If you wanted to try to transfer, you were going to have to sit out a year. And on top of sitting out a year, they could decide where you could go. They could stop you from going to the SEC. Mm-hmm. They could stop you going from Miami or Clemson or any of these other schools or Florida State. So you were really bound to that school. So they would heavily recruit you. But the second you were there, I think he says in his book and everything, there was a kind of de-recruitment time where they made things really hard on you. And coming in, I think we'd lost 5 games in 2007. So, and the way Urban Meyer is, I mean, he was going to stick it to you. So that was one of the toughest off seasons. It was definitely the toughest off season I was there. I can't speak for his entire time. I'm sure him coming in that first year was probably the worst, but the stadiums and mat drills that year were absolutely insane when you look back at it.
Man, they had you guys doing the mat drills too?
Oh yeah, I mean we did it all. It was it was something. You look back now, being 35 years old, and think maybe I should have said that part out in that part. But it was a ton of fun being a part of too. At the same point, we had a lot of really good players. But wanted to be a part. It was so competitive because there were so many good athletes there. And each and every day you want to show up and try to beat the guy next to you. And that showed up on Saturdays too, because if you could beat the guy next to you at Florida, you could probably beat the guy across from you, when it got to game time against other SEC opponents.
Oh, I love to hear that. Now, we got a little peek behind the curtain with Swamp Kings, the doc. We've had many of your teammates come on the show who were on that and shared some of their opinions about that. What are your feelings about how your coach and your team was portrayed? You think they got it right? Were they fair? Is there anything that they left out that you want to share?
Man, I mean, you'd probably have to be specific in the way you asked the questions about who and what. It was cool seeing the mat drills. I think that was pretty evident of what it was like. In those wrestling drills, it was you felt like life or death in those moments. And again, I'm a kicker, so it's probably very watered down to what the other guys experienced. But the level of competition that you stepped into every day was intense, and Urban recruited so many good players that he had the ability to create those competitive environments to where even if a guy or two fell out, we had so many other guys to step up that you could afford that. In this day and age when so many guys can walk away at any point, you probably can't have those type of environments. Which guys they kind of highlight and which guys they don't. I'm sure they left out a lot of guys that had tremendous impacts on the 06 and 08 teams that weren't necessarily highlighted. I wasn't there for 06, but I think specifically about Reggie Nelson and growing up a big Reggie Nelson fan, and he wasn't really highlighted a ton. Percy wasn't highlighted a ton. His impact on 08 was, you can't put it in words. So there's certainly bits and pieces where maybe they could have done a better job, but overall, I think it gave a really good look at what things were like. Having played, I'm glad for the most part it was a positive outlook on how things were, and there's no way to make the documentary unless it is a positive outlook, because I'm sure Tebow and Urban aren't going to step in and talk about it unless it's in that format.
Did they contact you to be in it?
I was not contacted, no.
Was there anything that you remember from that time that you were hoping was in there that you were surprised wasn't?
In that time, I mean,
Valentine's Day Massacre.
Yeah. I mean, those were kind of funny too. Of and I think Urban talks about it in his book, right? Champions eat steak, losers eat hot dogs. That was just kind of the way he ran the program in general. And so, I mean, there's plenty of guys that things didn't work out for probably the way they wanted to, and they were 4 and 5 star guys. So they're going to remember things one ways, and the guys that came in at 3 stars and went on to play in the NFL, they're going to remember it in the greatest way possible. So each guy's recollection is going to be a little bit different on how things played out in that era. So there's certainly things that they could have included. There's certain things that they talked about that happened a little bit differently. But some things I think stay in the locker room. And the cool thing about that is, a lot of things that happen, I don't think anybody's ever even described amongst how many guys were there.
I don't know. We've had Stephen Harris on the show, so.
Okay,
He's told us a little bit.
So he was gone before I was there. But yeah, I mean, they're in a highly competitive locker room,
Sure.
Tebow on one side, Spikes on the other. There were plenty of times where that boiled over. But for the most part, I think everybody had one goal, and that kept us on track, and we really did accomplish a lot of incredible things in that era.
You did, and the competition must have worked, because the Gators take their second national championship in 3 years in 2008 against Oklahoma. And you were a true freshman that year, and you just handled kickoffs at that point. Why did they split the kicking duties with, I think it was Jonathan Phillips, right?
Yeah, I mean, Phillips was super accurate that year. I think he went like 91%. He did a really good job. I came in hoping to take the job day one. And honestly, I probably wasn't ready. And, I wasn't overly accurate in training camp and in that spring. And, obviously Urban made the decision that way. It's a funny thing of that Ole Miss game. I think we could have kicked a 47-yarder. And I think there was a discussion at the time of whether or not they put me in or Phillips in at that time. Instead, we go for it on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 and don't get in that one loss. But yeah, looking back, I probably wasn't ready, and, probably give Urban credit. It probably helps my career that I don't go in a situation, get Gator Nation upset at me early on in my career where I wasn't ready, and wait till the right time where I was hitting the ball well and ready to perform.
Think Phillips had any idea the guy behind him was about to rewrite the UF record books?
Good question. I mean, I always thought I had a better leg than him. Just had to get it between those 2 yellow posts. But yeah, I mean, he ended up getting. We thought that was his senior year there in 2008, and he was able to petition and get another year in 2009. And obviously, going 91% starts the 2009 season as a starting kicker. And I could have transferred, could have done this or that, but Florida was my goal. So instead, just kind of put my head down and worked really hard to try to accomplish what I wanted to at University of Florida.
Well, clearly accomplished a ridiculous amount. But getting back to that national championship game, obviously, as we've established through documentaries and other stories, a lot of characters for teammates there. So you win the championship. Do you have to plan accordingly when you're doing the celebration? Certain circles you need to avoid to make sure you don't get in any extra trouble. What do you remember about after the game that you're comfortable with sharing with us?
How do you celebrate a college national championship?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of different guys on that team, but I'm 19 at the time, and we're in Miami, so they could care less the fact that you're,
yep,
that you won a national championship. You're not 21, so you're not. So I mean, I went and got pizza with a few of my buddies, but I'm sure some of the other guys had a better time, but it was cool too. I mean, hung out with some of the coaches who are smoking cigars and whatnot, and it's so crazy when you're that young and you just have no understanding of what this means. I come in there and we win a national championship the first year, my freshman year, and you're like, well, I guess we're just going to do this every year. But I think I was with John McCartney at the time, the defensive line coach, and so many of these guys have been in college football 20, 30 years and have never been a part of anything like this. So it's fun being a bit older and kind of looking back at it and thinking, how much it meant to certain people and really the impact that that year made.
And you see how hard it's been to stay at that level since. That's even more of a testament to what you accomplished, because we all thought you were going to do it every year too.
Right. Yeah. Right. Sophomore year, right? We go, was it 13? Was it 12-1 or 13-1? And in my first year, second year, we start 12-0. So I was like, well, we just don't really lose. This is just what happens. And then, then reality sets in.
Yeah, you mentioned that 09 season where you beat out Phillips and become the full-time place kicker. You go 22 of 30, you score 110 points. Tell us about your experience of becoming such a dominant force for UF and making that name for yourself. You were even a semifinalist for the Lou Groza Award at that point.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was interesting, right? So Phillips goes 91% his junior year, or I mean, what I thought was his senior year. So I thought just kind of naturally I'd walk into the role the next year and then find out in January, February that he gets another year. So, really you just spend a lot of time in the off season working on what you can control. And, I felt like I outkicked him in the spring, felt like I outkicked him in the fall, but it's really hard as a head coach for Urban to sit a guy that went 91% the year before on a national championship team, especially a kicker, right? I mean, it's your reliever in baseball or something where you don't go away from something that works. So as well as I was kicking, it's tough to make a change. So, in my head, I don't know if I'm going to get a chance. And I think he missed a kick week 1, missed a kick week 2. I'm not sure, again, if extra point, field goal, but I believe there's a missed kick in each one. And I remember I think we were playing Tennessee week 3 and not really knowing too much. He kind of tells me, there's a chance, nothing really concrete, and that we can practice, have a decent week in practice. And in the game, all Urban says is be ready. Okay, coach. Not sure what exactly that means, but I'll be ready. So, Philip hits, we would kick a 37-yarder in pregame before we'd all head in, and Phillips kicked that one. So, I do my normal warming up, a little bit on field goals, mostly kickoffs. That's what I'm hitting through the first 2 games. Again, hit very limited field goals. And, with that first drive, we're heading down the field, and he's kicking in the net. I'm not really, it's his time. I'm not really paying too much attention and just kind of sitting over there. And he comes over on the sideline. I think it was a first drive, and we're heading down the field. It's a 37-yarder. And he comes up and goes, Sturgis, you're in. Phillips had kicked 5 balls in the net at the time, and it probably helped me the fact that I didn't think about it too much, and you just have to run out in the field 2 seconds later, and you blink and the kick's over. So that was kind of my start to my career, and it was definitely a tough year, right? I think as far as the pressure goes, that 09 year we were supposed to be perfect. Mm-hmm. We returned 22 guys on defense, probably 7 starters on offense, including your Heisman Trophy winner quarterback. 3 NFL receivers, 3 or 4 NFL linemen, a few NFL running backs. We were supposed to be perfect that year, and so the expectations were just astronomical.
That was a ridiculous team. How bittersweet was that season for you, right? You guys, everything you just said, right? The team was supposed to win it all and didn't, but man, you had a great year. Your personal success certainly was, one of your, best years, right? I mean, how was that for you?
Yeah, and it was an up and down season for me too. I think I started pretty strong. I think I had a period of time where I missed a few kicks, and it's tough again too, right? Where how much is on the line, and when you feel like you're letting those guys down, that part certainly weighs on you a little bit. Yeah, a ton of ups and downs. I mean, I think they talked about a little bit in Swamp Kings, that Mississippi State game where we just don't play as good as we should. Even if we're winning games by 14, 17 points, they feel like losses almost to us because we should beat the teams by 30. So it was just a really long year, hard on a lot of guys, obviously hard on Urban. But we get there to 12-0 to the SEC championship, And losing the way we did to Alabama, I think was just gut wrenching. And then
They were a good team.
Right, a really good team. Yeah, any other team we probably beat, but that Mark Ingram, Julio Jones, we just ran into a buzzsaw in that particular game. They matched up well against us, and 2 days later, Urban tells us that he's leaving. It was just, it was things happen fast.
You mentioned ups and downs. That next year in 2010, you suffer a back injury. This kind of was the first of the injuries that did unfortunately follow your career down the road. How exactly did that first one happen? And was it a re-injury when it happened again, or related to this initial time?
Yeah, I think that was the first one. So again, kind of post NFL where you have time to look back. I do have some hip injuries, just kind of I have cam impingements in my hips and all, where I'm not able to sit into a squat well and things like that probably played into the back injury. And just the way we lifted, the way we did a lot of things, there was definitely just a lot of overuse in all of it. And I'm very much, I grew up one of 6 kids. My dad's a pastor. You grew up with a heavy deal of respect for the people that are coaching you and the people in authority. And so I think that, maybe certain times, certain lifts and things we did probably weren't great for me at the time, but I wasn't really one to question it when I'm 18, 19 years old. And I think, the way we did everything in the weight room, along with kicking 5-6 days a week, all impacted me in kind of an overuse injury where, I had a pars fracture, a few herniated discs, that all kind of came out at the same time there in 2010. So yeah, it was devastating for me. I don't think I kicked a ball for 8-9 months, and time where I definitely thought my career was over at that point of time.
This obviously created an opportunity for Chaz Henry, the punter, pretty memorably. He took over for you as the place kicker while you were down, nailing a game winner versus Georgia and winning the Rudy Guy Award that season. And he was just recently inducted into the UF Athletics Hall of Fame. You got to feel like he owes you a big assist there. Certainly, hopefully, at least a mention in his speech.
Yeah, well, he did. So yeah, we were actually it was a couple weeks ago. He got inducted. It was when we played Kentucky, and me, John Crowfoot, Zach Brust. We were there that Friday night when he got inducted. It was a pretty special time. Chaz and I are really good friends.
Very cool.
And he was an incredible punter here, still to this day. I mean, hit some of the biggest punts I've ever seen.
That was the Ray Guy Award, by the way.
Who Rudy Guy is.
Oh!
I wasn't going to correct it.
Rudy!
Yeah.
Sid's famous for those, so we are gonna do a show one day of all of those little flubs he has.
This just guarantees your episode gets included in my bloopers reel. You're welcome.
All right, back to Caleb here. You get a medical redshirt that year, so you don't lose any eligibility. In 2011, Urban's gone. Muschamp comes in. Did that change have any effect on you, I guess, personally, and then also kind of what was the locker room like in general?
Yeah, so for me personally, I mean, yeah, it's a ton of change, right? Urban leaves, so you have a new guy coming in, so you just have no idea. You've got to prove yourself completely over again, and to this day, Coach Muschamp's one of my favorite coaches I've ever played for. He was just incredible. I mean, I couldn't kick when he came in. Again, I had gotten hurt in August, September of that year. I probably didn't kick until April of that next year. Muschamp was hired in December, January. And for whatever reason, just felt like he always had an incredible amount of faith in me. And I think that paid a ton of dividends in me moving forward in my rehab and eventually performing at a really high level. He just always had a ton of trust in me. And I think that ended up paying off really well in games and things like that. I just always played with a tremendous amount of confidence under him.
Yeah, those 2 Muschamp years work out well for you. You lead the SEC in field goals and are in first team All-SEC and All-American both those seasons, 2011, 2012. Awesome. You're a Lou Groza Award finalist both those years. You're selected SEC Special Teams Player of the Year. You lead the SEC in field goal percentage as well your senior year. Out of all your UF accomplishments, is there one that means the most to you?
Man, I really don't think about it a ton. But I mean, that 2012 season definitely means a lot to me. That group of guys, I think, that going from we were 6-6 that year before to really competing for the national championship that next year. I think that coaching staff was really special. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Muschamp, Dan Quinn, who's doing an awesome job with the Commanders right now. DJ Durkin was our special teams coach. Really love the specialists that I played with at the time. You have Matt Elam, Sharif Floyd, Dominic Easley on defense. Sure. I really enjoyed that group of players. So, I mean, that year in particular stands out. What happened in between and the kicks made and whatnot doesn't matter as much to me.
When we spoke to Judd Davis and Shane Edge, some kickers from the early 90s at the start of the Spurrier era, they told us some crazy stories about pranks they would pull in their downtime since they didn't have to do as much as some of the position players during practice. So I got to ask, what sort of hijinks did you get up to in your downtime in practice? Anything you're comfortable with sharing with us about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely, you just had too much time to think about these things. I mean, every time at the hotel, we would always leave trash cans filled with water against the doors. And,
nice.
I mean, there were all kinds of different things. So, I mean, one kind of funny thing is, so my name's Caleb Sturgis. One of the advisors for the football was Caleb Sturgis. So I would get texts all the time about tutoring and things like that. So, yeah. I would send people all over the place for their tutors.
That's pretty funny. Small world.
No, it's crazy. We used to play this one game. So the amount of meetings was just insane in college. I think come in at 2:00, we wouldn't practice till 4:30 or something, and it'd be in meetings that entire time. A special teams meeting would be like 15-30 minutes. We'd have 2 hours on our hands, so we'd play full 9-inning games. We called it cap baseball, where we'd get a Gatorade top and throw it across the locker room and try to hit it with a sandal. And so, we had all kinds of just ridiculous games as specialists.
You mentioned earlier that you get together with some of those guys and play golf. Was that with Judd and Shane? Because I can only imagine.
Yeah, I mean we're all still pretty local here, so we still play like the quarterback club and different things. Shane and I actually play a good amount of pickleball now.
Okay.
Against each other. His son Brock's a pretty good player. Shane's a good player.
He mentioned that to us. He did some challenges. I think he challenged anybody that wants to play him and his son.
Him and Brock in pickleball. Yep. I mean, Shane's a great athlete, but both those guys are very good golfers. I mean, I think Judd's pretty close to scratch, and Shane's not far behind.
I'm sure those are interesting times with those two guys. Anyway, you get drafted by the Dolphins in 2013. That's a pretty big deal, right? Not a ton of kickers get drafted. Were you excited first to stay in Florida, and then also where were you when you got that call?
Yeah, I mean, I was stoked at the time. I think it kind of came down to the Dolphins, Jets, Browns, Seahawks. So out of all those, Miami would definitely probably be my number one pick, and honestly probably was 3 or 4 on where I thought I would go. I was really excited again too. Kind of after I finished my senior year till the draft was probably some of the best kicking I've ever done. So on my tryouts and in the combine, I felt very confident I'd play at the next level. But you just never know, right? You've got to convince one team that you're the guy. So it was definitely a nerve-wracking Saturday for me. But I decided I'd play golf with my kicking coach and my brother and brother-in-law that day in St. Augustine. So I think we were on the 17th green at the time when I finally got the call.
Nice. Drafted by the Dolphins. You play there a couple seasons. Then you go to Philly for 3. You round out your pro career in L.A. with the Chargers. Unfortunately, you suffer a series of injuries that decimate your career. And I heard on another podcast where you said by the time you were in LA, you were kicking to just not hurt yourself, not to be competitive and win games. I thought that was a very interesting statement. At what point did you realize that, football might be done for you?
Yeah, you never want to let a childhood dream kind of escape you. But the realization definitely comes into play, and two, when you're a competitor, it's just really hard to not be able to do what you know you could do, or when you really start feeling like you're letting other people down. And I definitely think, I got hurt that year in Philly, that we ended up winning a Super Bowl, signed a decent deal out in LA, and got there and just felt like a shell of myself. And so it definitely started to set in pretty fast that I just can't do what I once could. And I really don't know if I can do it better than the next guy could. And I think when that settled in, I just knew it was probably time to walk away.
Well, clearly, before you walked away, you definitely made your mark. Mentioned your time with the Eagles, won the Super Bowl, one of the most exciting Super Bowls, certainly one of the more exciting recent Super Bowls. You didn't get the chance to play. You were hurt, but you got your ring, obviously part of the championship team.
Go ahead, ask him, Sid.
I like to ask this. So, well, first of all, as someone, as John pointed out, has multiple rings, which one's the first one you bust out? That national championship ring or the Super Bowl ring? Where are they prominently displayed for you?
It's a good. They're all in the same box, to be honest. The Super Bowl one is probably the only one that has real diamonds. But the national championship one goes a little bit further, that knowing that I live here in Gainesville, so it depends on the occasion, that's for sure. But no, they all certainly have their special meaning. I mean, I never even envisioned myself playing football when I was 13 years old. When I was 15, I was on a state championship team with Brandon James,
friend of the show.
He was incredible in high school, college, obviously. So yeah, I mean, they all have their special place, and you really just, when you bring them out, you mostly just think of your teammates and what it took to get there, for sure.
Is it like the American Express card, though? Do you not leave home without it? Like, which one am I going to wear today?
I don't. They're massive. It's kind of ridiculous trying to wear them. And maybe the offensive lineman, it feels more normal, but for me.
Well, looking back at your career at UF, what do your Gator records mean to you today?
Yeah, again, not a ton. It's mostly just about the guys I played with, and I think looking back over the last 10 years, whatever, of just realizing how special that time was, that that's not just the norm, that we had a really special group of guys. I'd say that's the biggest thing. And, if a record gets brought up, just the really cool thing to realize is that, I grew up as a kid dreaming of Gator football. And so to look back and think that I had an impact on some of these times, that's what means a lot to me.
One of the things we've learned on this show is we ask a lot of guys the same question we just asked you, right? And it's interesting. It's interesting for us to hear that most guys have the same answer. They really don't. They don't think about the records. They think about kind of their time and their teammates a lot more. And a lot of guys actually, I know John's educated them on some of their records, right? So they clearly didn't care. It was definitely more the camaraderie and the team. So that, to me, I mean, we all thought, us that weren't athletes on the team, we would think we'd be going around with shirts with our records on.
I get it tattooed on my forehead. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's interesting to hear you guys, the guys that actually did it, that it doesn't mean as much as maybe we as fans think it might.
Yeah. I mean, it's the one cool thing about it all is just the amount of really good kickers that have come since. I mean, Eddie, and then Evan, and then Smack's incredible. So, and then on the punter side, obviously, have Chaz, who I think really laid the foundation. Kyle Christie was an unbelievable punter. You have the Townsend brothers, now Crawshaw. I mean, we have just had an incredible amount of really good specialists. So, again, looking back, if you think that maybe we were part of the foundation laid for some of those guys, that's the cool part.
So when you're telling stories to your family or friends, or even if you're just reminiscing about, your times playing, do you have a favorite kick that stands out in your memories? I mean, any level. I know you had a game winner against Arkansas in '09, but does any one kick stand out above the rest, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it depends on kind of the situation, whatever. But I grew up in St. Augustine, so obviously, I grew up a big Jaguars fan as well. So at the time it was Altel. I don't even know what it's called now, the Jaguars Stadium, but it was 30 miles north of us. So playing a game, Florida, Georgia, being close to the hometown, and obviously that rivalry. I come in 2008, 2007, they stomped the end zone. Um, that rivalry was just incredible. In 2009, I think I hit a 56-yarder, and this was before Brandon Aubrey for the Cowboys is hitting them, in the middle of any quarter. uh, I, I hit a 56-yarder at the end of the half.
Right.
Wow. And so, yeah, that one meant a lot for sure. I think it put us up, I don't know, 10 or 17 at the time, where it was a fairly significant kick and a big game in my hometown. Playing for my home, playing for the team I grew up cheering for, and probably our biggest rivalry game. When you add all those things up, that one definitely meant a lot.
As someone who did college in Florida, when we think of like bad conditions for kicking, it's not like playing in the frozen tundra of Lambeau or the old windy Candlestick Park. So, what were some of the worst conditions you've kicked in? And when it's really cold, does that hurt your foot?
I mean, it's funny. I mean, I think honestly the worst conditions I ever played in was probably that Florida State game in 2008.
Soak up the dope.
Rain game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I that's the one that Tebow kind of has those famous pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Where his
money.
jersey's red. Yeah, that jersey probably sells for $1 million now. But yeah, that I mean, I think I hit probably 2 balls out of bounds at the time, and the field was underwater. It was windy. It was just nasty out there. Fortunately, I mean, I played 2+ seasons in Philadelphia. I played a snow game in Pittsburgh. That one was pretty tough. But man, that game at Florida State was nasty out. Fortunately, we just destroyed them that day.
Was that a hard adjustment for you, being a Florida person, now all of a sudden being in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh? Obviously, it's a big difference there in December than it is in the Swamp or in St. Augustine.
Right. I mean, we have heated benches. You've got a little heater over there. You just gotta not pay much attention to it for those 20 seconds. You run out there and run back, and you're fine.
You mentioned how blessed we've been with some of the gifted kickers that have come through UF. You mentioned Eddie and Evan. Is there one that you've watched over the years that you kind of marvel at, whether for whatever reason that just kind of sticks out, whether it's accuracy or distance or both or whatever it is? Is there one kicker that you look at and you're like, man, I can't believe he does what he does?
Yeah, I mean, both those guys in their own unique way. So, I'll kind of start with Eddie. Eddie's just one of the most natural ball strikers you'll ever see. Of his form isn't very good, to be honest. It's probably gotten a lot better. But, like, he just finds a way. I mean, you see it in golf, and you think of maybe like a Jim Furyk, where you watch his swing, you think, no way. But just every time he strikes the ball, it's pretty darn good. And that's Eddie. Evan was just, what's incredible to me is, I mean, he stepped in as a true freshman and just is one of the purest ball strikers you'll ever see. I mean, every ball has the same slow end over end rotation, and it just did it the entire time. No moment was too big.
He did always seem so confident.
Yeah. I mean, it just, right, it's just kind of supreme confidence. And so that always stood out a ton to me. And even talking to him too, it never seemed like it meant a ton to him. It was just another day. And then, I watch Trey Smack now, and both those guys, as much as I look up to those guys for what they've done, I mean, Trey Smack is hitting the ball further than any kicker I've ever seen hit field goals. If I hit the second level in the Swamp, it was a big kick for me. And if he doesn't hit the second level on extra point, I'm thinking, why did he miss hit that ball? it's another level.
What's the longest field goal you've made? We know the 56-yarder at UF, but just on a football field, kicking, what's the longest one you've made?
Yeah, so it's funny. Second longest one in the game was in the same field. The first game I ever played in was against the Dolphins. We were playing Jaguars preseason. I had a 58. Um, on a field with a snap and hold, probably like 66. No snap and hold, maybe 72.
I think that's on YouTube, isn't it? I think it is. I think I saw it.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, but these guys now, I mean,
yeah, the level of field goal kickers in the NFL is nuts right now. It's like every one of them can make a 60-yarder.
Right. So when I was playing, you would really start thinking after like 54, 55 yards of we should probably punt right now in an indoor stadium. If you're outdoor, plus or minus 1 or 2 yards. I mean, guys are hitting 59, 60 yarders in the middle of quarters. So, I mean, what coaches are comfortable, because again, the team gets the ball right where you kick the ball. So you're giving the ball at the 50-yard line if you miss that 59, 60-yard field goal. And they're comfortable in doing that. And obviously the analytics probably say it's worthwhile. So the game's definitely changed even in the few years that I've been out.
I feel like it's like paralleled the NBA, how there's so many 3-point shots now. Like a 50-yard field goal is just like another corner three. Like, it used to be, wow, tough kick or tough shot. But now it happens a few times a game. It's like, oh, it's just kind of commonplace.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I still talk to some of the guys in the NFL, and it's definitely a conversation of, are they going to try to dumb down the ball a little bit? Are they going to try to narrow the uprights? Because it's, I mean, I think through like 3 games this year, guys were something like 36 of 37 over 50. Just absurd numbers.
Not Greg Zuerlein, but we're not going there.
That was through 3 games. I can't say what happened after.
Well, Caleb, after you hung up the cleats, you dabbled in coaching a little bit with Cole's camps and helping with the Under Armour game. Do you still do any coaching? What are you up to these days?
Yeah, I still try to coach a few high school kids when I can. Have 3 little girls now, so they take up a lot of my free time. I do financial advising for Koss Ollinger here in Gainesville, so definitely stay pretty busy, but I still love kicking. So, I definitely had a lot of people pour into me. One guy in particular, Dan Mowry, he kicked at Florida State actually, but just gave a ton to me, and that's certainly why I had the opportunity that I had. So I still try to be able to help out, local kickers if that's something that they're passionate about.
Any of your girls have the soccer bug?
My 5-year-olds played a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's funny that they'll be aggressive when they play soccer against each other. Still waiting for it to, when we get out there on the teams.
Was Mowry one of the wide right guys?
No.
Oh,
okay. We just assume all Florida State kickers get that, right?
I don't think he was, actually.
But no.
All right, Caleb, we usually end the show in a bit, and we're going to end it with you or trivia. Are you ready?
This is my favorite game.
You or trivia?
Yep. I'm going to say a stat, and I'm going to say who had a better number in this stat, you or so-and-so, and you got to tell me who it was. You ready?
All right, yeah.
Number 1, who had more field goals in a single season, you or Bobby Raymond? And he played in 84.
Me.
Yes, because you have the record, right? So that's an easy one. But I mention it because if you look at the top 10 single season field goal totals in UF history, you have 3 of the top 4.
Wow.
You had 24 in 2012, and then two years with 22, and then Raymond's stuck in there. He had 1 with 23. So you had 3 of the top 4 prolific field goal seasons in a single season.
Do postseason count?
Good question.
Because, with the new playoff system, that's going to be beat pretty soon, I'm sure. When we start making the playoff, that'll be soon.
That's right.
All right, number 2. Who had a higher field goal percentage for a career? You or Lou Groza Award winner, Judd Davis?
Man, I know what he was the year he won the Groza. Oh, I think I was like 78 or 79. No, I would have been like, oh man, that's tough. I'm gonna go Judd.
Yeah, that's right. Judd,
Yeah.
his field goal percentage for a career, 82.1. You were at 79.5.
Yeah, but look how many attempts over 50. But
oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And were the goalposts wider when he played, or was that before his time?
No, we just started kicking the ball over 50 after I started playing.
Okay. All right. Number 3. Who kicked the longest field goal? You or friend of the show and Gators' all-time leading scorer, Jeff Chandler?
Oh, definitely me. The only guy I think hit a further one, hit it off a tee in 60. I mean, he hit a 60. That was me.
Yep. You had that 56-yarder against Georgia in 2009 that you had mentioned. Jeff had a 54-yarder also against Georgia in 2000.
No, Jeff's a beast. But I think I had 2 other 55, so he might be 4 on that.
Oh. There you go. All right, last one, number 4. Who had the most 50-plus yard field goals in your UF career? You or Evan McPherson?
Me.
You did. You hold the UF record for most field goals of 50-plus yards with 8. Evan had 5.
Well, he needs a trophy. I don't think any other guest has swept that game before. He got every single one of those right. He needs like a prize. He got almost 4 for 4. That's awesome.
I think you're right, Sid. I don't think we've had anybody get them all right.
No one has ever done that before.
I know too much about kicking. That's the problem.
That's it. It shows.
What is Trey at right now? Does he have 5?
I don't know. I didn't see him in the list.
I think he's at about 5. So
you got a little distance still.
Yeah, if he doesn't go pro this year, he might be on the line.
Yeah, but you don't care about records anyway, right?
That's right.
No. Hey, as long as we make the playoff next year, I'll be fine.
There you go. Fair enough. All right, Caleb, man, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Honestly, you were one of my favorite Gators of all time, especially kickers. I mean, when you went to the pros, I was drafting you every year for my fantasy football team. I didn't care if you got hurt or not. So it's an absolute honor for me as a Gator and a Dolphin fan to have you on with us. And, we really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Andy. I really enjoyed my time tonight. It was awesome speaking to you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, man. One of my favorites.
I like it.
I knew you were going to bring that up because I remember you said draft him every year.
Yep.
I wasn't lying.
Every year.
I wasn't lying.
You were drafting Caleb Sturgis every time.
It didn't fail you. I had a few shares of him myself. Can't go wrong.
Like the 3rd round, I'd take him.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Early.
I'm traded up. I got to get him.
So here we go. Here's our 2 bits. I'm going to start it. You ready?
Okay, hit us.
Yeah.
Everybody in the sports world, they always talk about the what ifs. Bo Jackson and his hip. What if he never got hurt? What would he have accomplished in the NFL or, other players like that? Well, my biggest what if now is what if Caleb Sturgis did not get derailed by injuries? Would he still be? He'd still be kicking. He'd be one of those kickers in the NFL. Play for 18 years. He'd break the scoring record.
I could see it. I like that. It's one of those sliding doors.
Right?
Yes, like a different path.
I mean, if he didn't get hurt that 1 year at UF, he might have won the Rudy Guy Award.
Oh, Rudy! Okay.
I was waiting to see if you picked that up, John, because if you didn't pick that up, that was my 2 bits, no doubt. If you didn't pick that up, that was going to be my 2 bits.
I was waiting. I was just waiting. I was letting it simmer.
That one had to.
a little
that
bit.
was good. It had a nice simmer to it. That was good.
Excellent.
I wonder if Caleb recognized that either. What did he just say?
He did. He said, yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but.
Oh, God. I'll do mine.
All right,
I'll do mine.
Who's next?
So good at. All right,
I was surprised, honestly, his answer to the question about all the drills and stuff with Urban Meyer. I was actually kind of surprised that he made the kickers be part of that. The stadiums, I guess I get, but man, the mat drills. Caleb's not a big guy.
He probably just had to do it with the punter, though. Thankfully, right? Hopefully, they weren't pairing him up with Big Joe Cohen or anything like that, right?
I mean, if it's anything like what we saw in Swamp Kings, I feel bad for him. I can't believe they made him do that.
Him and Phillips on the mat just beating each other
Right.
up over the
Right, well,
kicking job.
Um,
Jeez.
I really liked like the football EGOT there, you know, that he won the high school championship, the national college championship, and the Super Bowl. And it sounded like that was like one of those extremely rare unicorn one. And he just casually mentions like 2 other guys who was on his team that he knew who did it. So that's pretty cool. That's a very cool club. I'm curious to know how many other Gators can check that box, because that is pretty. It's pretty amazing to have any one of those accomplishments, let alone all 3. So I kind of like those unicorn situations there.
I could have swore you were going to pick the fact that he went 4-0 on the U or trivia.
I was very impressed. He knew it though too, and he even had the numbers to back it up. Those weren't just guesstimates. He knew it. He was ready. Yeah, shout out. He is the best at our trivia show so far.
Yeah, Florida's all-time field goal leader. We've been trying to get him for a long time.
Yep.
So this one feels good, fellas.
We really have a kickers Mount Rushmore here, huh? That's pretty amazing. The kickers we've had on our show.
We do.
We've got our own kickers club. I like.
We
it.
do, and we did Mount Rushmores with at least with one of either Judd or we did it with Chandler. I forget. I remember Sturgis was on it. I remember them saying Sturgis was on it. So
well deserved.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Good stuff, fellas, and some great shows coming up as well. Always be checking www. Do I have to say that anymore? World Wide Web?
Doesn't that happen automatically? Even I know that.
All for the GatorsPodcast.com. 4 is the number 4. You could see all our upcoming scheduled shows, when we're going to record them. You can listen to all our shows.
Always be checking.
Always be checking.
Love it.
Is that our new slogan?
Yeah. You mentioned it. ABC. Always be checking.
It just came out. I don't know.
I like it.
Getting late.
Let's go with it.
Getting late.
Yeah, no. I like it. Let's go with it.
All right. For Rudy Guy, we're going to sign off. You ready?
Rudy Guy, the ABCs of punting.
Oh, my God.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.